o Te Kaunihera o Rotorua. Welcome everybody to this meeting of the Rotorua Lakes Council. This is day 8, our final day of our long-term plan hearings. Before we start our meeting today, I'll start us off with a blessing with a karakia. Tūtawa mai runga, tūtawa mai raro, tūtawa mai roto, tūtawa mai waho. Kia tau wai te mauri tū, te mauri ora ki te katoa, haumie, huie, tae kie. And in English, I summon from above, I summon from below, I summon from within, I summon the surrounding environment, the universal vitality and energy to infuse and enrich all present, enriched, unified and blessed. Thank you. So just a reminder, everyone, this meeting is being live streamed, so please keep your mobile phones on silent, and we will have a short break at 3 p.m. as well. We do have some people that will attend by Zoom as well, including Councillor Fisher-Wang, who will be joining us shortly. I do ask if there are any new apologies. I see Councillor Greg Brown is just about to walk in, and I do have an ongoing apology from Councillor Patterson and an apology from Councillor Waru. There appear to be no further apologies. Councillor Robert Lee has also just walked in, so we are good to go. Now, a reminder to our submitters, you have 5 minutes for your submission, and there will be a timer on just the side of me where you will hear a short ding after 5 minutes. So without further ado, we will get into our hearings for this afternoon, and it's my pleasure to welcome Robert O'Kell for our first submitter, and this is a verbal submission. However, elected members, you will have a handout in front of you with his key points. So Robert, when you're ready, we can take your submission. Thank you very much.
Rural ratepayers are already excessively rated for the services they don't receive or can't use because of the restricted hours of opening. If I want sewage treatment, water supply, stormwater, it's my cost, and the road is State Highway NZTA funded that dumps its stormwater culvert onto my property. Nowhere in this plan is there anything related to Waikato Regional Council. Has anyone ever talked to them? UK's Nottingham, Birmingham and Woking councils all went bust in 2023. They followed Thurrock and Croydon, with half of councils warning of effective bankruptcy within 5 years. It's appropriate in those cases to ask questions about decision-making, governance and accounting. I think the excessive management and increased funding to retain staff is a problem when frontline Infracore staff have to strike for a living wage. 30 million a year in debt interest from 2029 is utter waste. You follow that through. At the moment we have 400 million in debt. To get to 560 million, you have to over budget by 40 million a year for the next 4 years. On page 10, it says that the high official cash rate does not cause inflation. It suppresses it. High council rates rises are inflationary, causing the Reserve Bank to maintain higher OCR. So your statement on page 10 is incorrect. On page 10, there's a little brown panel on the right-hand side. So not only are you planning on spending 160 million extra debt, you have another 46 million which you also want to put into debt. Page 19, going for growth, states the figures are inflated. What are the uninflated amounts? Another error. The current lawless state of the town is a direct result of council-supported policy for rehoming those outside of Rotorua. Various government agencies are also to blame. The reputation of the town and the intimidation of residents sours the experience of locals and deters tourists. The Tarawera sewage project with open-ended costs for residents is heinous. There are parallels to the UK Post Office debacle, where the actions of officials resulted in losses, imprisonments and fatalities from ill-considered legal action. Rates will increase by 70%, not by 55%, because of the front-loading of percentages, which is deliberate misleading of cost.
Thank you very much, Robert. We appreciate you thoroughly going through our document and presenting to us today. Thank you. We appreciate you coming in. Thank you, Robert. I'd now like to invite Cam Morgan. Elected members, this is your submission 336 in your files. Welcome, Cam.
Recording in progress.
Afternoon. Howdy. Hi. So I'm here around the short-term accommodation, and I've actually listened to quite a bit of the submissions online, and I'm really impressed with how the community has come forward and is challenging this process. I am also challenging this process. Before I get started, I thought I might read something. It's a quote from Jordan Peterson. Being smart and wise doesn't necessarily have a direct correlation. So my challenge to you, I'm not actually going to give you any more information or facts. I'm actually presenting different to what I've written, because I think you've got actually quite a bit of information from the public already. And I think you're probably starting to get a bit brain dead by the same repetitive information, but that must be telling you something, that you need to make some serious, wise decisions. And to add to that saying, he also indicates that intelligence, people that are intelligent aren't always wise. And I think I'm quite an intelligent person. I've made some mistakes in life, and I've learnt from that. And the saying, or the definition of wisdom, is the quality of experience, knowledge, and good judgment, the quality of being wise. And to quote that, also listen to his words of wisdom. So I'm endorsing a few of your presentations you've already had. And I'm encouraging you to be wise and go back and read and have a good look at the data that they've presented. There's Graham and Sandra Knox, so their presentation was 332. Greg Lowe, 309. And Colin Jackson, 228. Now, I had written a completely different presentation, and when I listened to them, their factual information should be something you should be, their wise words from their experience is something that you maybe should be weighing up with this decision that you've got in front of you that you're making or looking at. I'm not challenging the process. I think you've had enough of that, necessarily. I have a question though. Have you ever stayed at Airbnb or short-term accommodation? Not just here in Rotorua, but anywhere. And if you have, and I see some nods, if you have, why? Why did you do that rather than staying at a motel? What was it like? What was the experience like? So think of that as you're thinking about this decision, because you're going to have a massive impact on short-term stay accommodation availability in Rotorua. And yet it's here to stay. Internationally, it's proven to be an option. 27% of people choose short-term accommodation. And they want that for the experience. So wisdom also tells me that maybe we should be looking at this and being proactive, and how do we enhance short-term accommodation options in Rotorua to enhance our tourist destination here. rather than looking at it as a, hey, we can get some money off this process. Yes, there is a process there that maybe as a community we need to talk about, but yeah, I think there's some wisdom from what you've had presented to you to consider. The other question I have, so these are questions I'm putting out there, is, if there is any of the councillors owning either motels or Airbnb or anything that may be affecting this process, that may be there possibly as a conflict of interest, and that should be something that should be also publicly aware, I think, because there's so many people that are going to be affected of this, talking about 1,000 properties. The other question I have there is the change of how you rate. That based on the use of a residential property, you're deciding whether it's going to be commercial or not. What is short-term stay? Is a brothel a short-term stay? It's a business that operates out of residential. As far as I'm aware, I'm not sure, but hairdressing is another one, short-term stay. What is short-term stay? So there's some questions here that I'm putting to you to consider and have some wise thoughts about. And so therefore, the 60-day thing that you've put out there, that's sort of one of those short-term stay considerations. If I stayed in a rental for 60 days, is that considered short-term? So there's some things here about terminology and the way you're presenting this proposal that you may need to reconsider, and I'm encouraging you to create some bigger forum with the community that you're considering that's going to be affected by this, that maybe as a community we can develop something that's internationally, wow, that's cool, rather than a penalty. It's actually an opportunity for us to actually step up and do something better than just any other town, because Rotorua is better than just any other town. And so, again, there's a verse in the Bible, I'm not going to quote it, but it basically says, fools rush in, only fools rush in. The wise are prudent, take time, consider. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cam, for your thoughtful submission to us today. I'd now like to invite Vic Jenkins to make their submission. This is 276.
Firstly, I'd like to take time to thank you, Vote, for taking the time to see us. It's a nice privilege. I'm not a great orator. I don't like speaking in public, but I'm here to support my community, Rotorua Lakes community. With regards to the sewerage system that we have, what has been said, and I don't really need to reiterate or repeat what you have already heard, just that I'm here to support them. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Vic. I'd now like to invite Sandra Haynes on behalf of and from the residents and ratepayers of Rotorua. And you just have a handout, elected members. Thank you. You are welcome to pull up a seat from one of the front rows or stand if you're comfortable, if you wish.
Kia ora tātou. My name is Lynn Reardon. I'm a resident of Oxford Road, Lake Rotorua, and Sandra Haynes.
I'm Sandra Haynes. I'm a resident of State Highway 30 at Lake Rotorua.
We've been nominated to speak on behalf of the submission. As you can see, there's a number of us, and you've got the submission in front of you. I didn't write the submission. I'd love to claim responsibility for this, but I think it's an incredibly comprehensive submission that Sandra's put together for us. There's just a couple of points that we'd like to highlight. I guess the first is, I imagine all week that you've had people sitting here regaling you with stories about how the implementation of the scheme wasn't as smoothly undertaken as could have been, and we've listed some of those on page 2. I guess my summation of that is, in my opinion, Council did not have the people or skills necessary to provide the oversight that was required to get that project in on time and to budget. The other thing on the costs that I'd like to raise is that I did an official information request and I didn't get all the information that I wanted, but I would like to thank staff for getting back so promptly on that. My maths isn't very good, but when I look at those costs and the response that I got to some of my questions, I come to 11.5 million of the 51 million was incurred because for cultural purposes. And I don't have any problem with those costs being incurred. I understand that legally Council has to go through that process. What I have an issue with is that they are my cost. They were of no private benefit to me, and in fact, when we look at the scheme itself, the scheme was implemented to preserve the quality of the water of Lake Rotorua. And as residents, we know that Rotorua has the best water quality in the district. But if the purpose was to preserve the lake quality, then that should be a cost borne by the entire district, if not the country. The cultural costs required to get the scheme done, if that was what was required to get the project across the line, then fine, but that should be a district-wide rate, in my opinion. And if we take out those costs and you get the 10 million from the enhancement, or from Ministry of Environment, then we get back to the original 15,000 per connection that most of us agreed to, and that we were expecting to pay some time ago. That's all I've got on the costs, really. I guess the biggest thing for us is that as a community, we cannot afford this rate. The area of Lake Rotorua, East Rotoiti, has some of your people who earn the lowest income in the district. And I think the last census shows that the average yearly income to 28,700 for Rotorua, for Rotoiti, and 23,800 for Rotorua. So, if this rate goes ahead at 45,000 per property, then you're going to decimate that community. I think we've mentioned in the submission that there are already 21 properties on the market out there. You will get rates default if this goes ahead, not because people protesting, although there will be some of that, but through necessity, through survival. People will not be able to afford this rate. And I guess the other thing that I'd like to point out is that this Lake Rotorua has seen the highest lake levels in 50 years. Some residents out there have had the lake in their house, and they have only just had that water recede and are starting to rebuild their properties, and this came out right on top of it. This community cannot afford this rate, And, I hope that it doesn't have tragic consequences, because this put a lot of stress on the community. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. I'll take over just in terms of what we've identified as being the main issues of concern with the proposed targeted rate.
Thank you. And apologies, the 5 minutes is up. If you could just quickly summarise those points, though.
We use Victor's time. Yeah, 4.5 minutes left.
Sorry, I
2
didn't
minutes.
mean
Just
to
go
speak
2
that
minutes.
long.
I appreciate that you are a large group.
Okay, sorry, that's just thrown me a little bit. The first issue that we identified is that of reliance, that in terms of council's obligations towards our community, people who signed those consent forms to have the tanks installed did so on the understanding that it was a legal undertaking like a contract. And as such, we'd argue that ratepayers are entitled to rely on the amount that they were given, that it would cost. The other issue is about actually giving an estimate. There's a variance of around 10 to 15% that's generally accepted in making estimates. However, we understood at one point there would be a variance of up to 30%, although that was intended to be covered by council, not by ratepayers. What we've ended up with now is close to a 300% variance on the estimated costs, which is simply out of order, really. There's a mine of information on the Commerce Commission website and on the Consumer Protection websites about that, if you want to go and have a look. The other thing is, in terms of our rights as consumers, we think there's a right of redress not to pay more than a reasonable price for the installation. In particular, Section 31 of the Consumer Guarantees Act might be relevant to that. Council's financial management responsibilities under Section 101 of the Local Government Act. A local authority must manage your revenues and your general financial dealings prudently. I'm sure you're aware of this. And in a manner that promotes the current and future interests of the community. Well, there's no way that 45,000 or 88,000, if you pay it over time, is going to meet the interests of this community. In meeting your funding needs, you also need to consider the distribution of benefits between the community as a whole and any identifiable part of the community, and that comes back to that public-private that Lynn mentioned, and also the district-wide benefits as opposed to our benefits as individual ratepayers and residents, and also the period in which those benefits are expected to occur. We understand that the scheme is expected to have something like a 50-year life, and yet the payments are expected to be made over 25 years. Can't those be pushed out to the 50-year period? The overall impact of any allocation of liability for revenue needs on the current and future social, economic, cultural and social, economic, environmental and cultural well-being of the community, which clearly this doesn't do. So the other one is around consultation. I won't go into all of that, but I'm sure you're reasonably well versed, or will be told if you aren't, of the quite extensive requirements around consultation and information. I'll just point out that the last official information that we have received from Council was dated the 16th of July 2021. Since then, we've had nothing except rumours, and there's been plenty of those, about the costs blowout, about how much we would have to pay, and so on. So that falls well short. The other one is in terms of actually knowing that it was going to be a targeted rate levied from the coming financial year. Many residents probably still don't know, many ratepayers probably still don't know about that, because there's been no letter, nothing sent. The LTP consultation document wasn't circulated. Even at the meeting, and you'll recall that was held at Rotorua, there weren't enough copies of it for people who attended. So really it's just been through the community association or neighbours telling other neighbours that people even know that this is coming up, and those who don't live in their properties may well still not know. So I'd just like to briefly touch on some of the solutions, because we don't just want to be negative. I know you've probably had a lot of negativity, but we do think there are some ideas that we might be able to share with you on how to get out of this, because we appreciate that, and it was brought up at Rotorua as well. Some of you weren't here, probably most of you weren't here when this process started. You're not responsible for the stuff-ups that were made by the contractors, but now it's a mess that you're sort of left to clean up. So some of the ideas that we have moving forward.
I'm incredibly sorry. I've been very lenient and we have used up Vic's additional time, but we do need to be quite strict on the 5 minutes to be fair for everyone.
Okay.
We are a few minutes into the next person's time. So what I suggest is, if the solutions aren't already in the submission, if you'd like to just send them to us, and we'll make sure that as elected members we read what you have in front of you.
So you don't have a copy of our submission?
They are
I'm
in the
just
submission.
checking if it's different to what
No.
you've
No,
already
it's not
submitted.
different.
Okay.
No, it's not
We
different.
do have the written copies, and I assure you that we are all reading those as well.
Okay, well, just three quick things. Okay, public versus private benefit, I think you need to consider. I'd really like to draw your attention to your quote on page 18 of the consultation document that you put out about development contributions, and how what you're proposing with this for us to pay is at odds with what you've written here about developers, not the council or community, pay for construction of roads, footpaths and the wastewater and drinking water infrastructure. So that's very inconsistent with what you've actually written in the same document. Okay?
Thank you, Sandra. Sorry, I do need to conclude this now.
Fine.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lynn, and thank you
My
to
apologies
the
for
residents
taking
and
so long.
ratepayers of Rotorua. Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. I don't have a hearing number for the submission in what we've been presented with today.
We'll make sure that we get that to you.
Thank you, and everybody else. Yeah.
I'd now like to invite up Jennifer Murray to make their submission. Welcome. You have 5 minutes. We've got the timer here, and thank you for these handouts as well. We've distributed them. When you're ready.
Kia ora, just to introduce myself, I'm Jen Murray, I'm the CEO of Rotorua, Rotorua Centre for Youth, formerly known as the Rotorua Youth Centre.
Oh, kia ora, I'm Lee Richards, I'm a Senior Manager at Rotorua Centre for Youth.
Would I be correct in thinking you've already seen this submission, that it was actually in your pack? Because certainly we weren't on the list, we were missed, so I just want to make sure that people have actually seen it so that I can have it taken as read. Yep.
Yep, sorry, elected members, on here it says verbal submission, but it would have been in your hearing files with another number, so yes.
Oh, yeah, cool. So, as you'll be aware, the Rotorua Youth Centre is a council-owned building. We have been in that building for about, say, 15 years or so. We have a lease up until 2029. What we are looking for from Council is we strongly request an adequate funding line in the long-term plan for renewals, repairs and maintenance of the Council-owned Rotorua Community Youth Centre building and infrastructure. The Council did an engineering report about 5 years ago on the building, and it showed that the building was robust, but there were maintenance and renewals that were supposed to be undertaken, and the majority of those renewals and repairs have not been done whatsoever. On checking with council staff, and the reason for this was because there had been no financial line in the long-term plan last time around. We were promised this time that that would be put forward, and in the draft plan that came out, there is still no long-term plan line for the funding for renewals repairs for the youth centre building. This is what we are looking for. This is a landlord's responsibility. As council and as steward of public assets, it would be negligent to enable a building which has a good, robust building to go into a state of disrepair that is no longer fit for purpose. The building has obviously been deteriorating over the 5 years from that engineering report, and we believe if there had been a line in the LTP last time and in this time, then those deteriorations would not have occurred. We're very, very clear that this is a basic responsibility of a landlord, which council is for our organisation. The other side as well is that we have a partnership agreement with council. We have never asked, I've been in the position for 6 years, and we have never asked for finance from council for a partnership agreement. We've asked for a partnership agreement that keeps our building up and running and maintained to a good, useful standard. And that again is what we're seeking moving forward within the partnership agreements as well. We are not looking for cash from council, we just want our building. Key aspect is we're a youth one-stop shop. We provide wraparound support for our rangatahi within Rotorua. You'll have the cards of some of the services that we have, and we directly support the community wellbeing aspect and we believe a fair contribution to the community wellbeing of our rangatahi within Rotorua. All we're looking for is a line in the LTP, maintenance and renewals. Thank you.
Thank you very much to you both for coming along to present and providing further information as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, cheers.
Jody Ratahi, would you like to do your submission now? Okay. We welcome Jody Ratahi. This is 362.
Kia ora koutou. Ko Jody Ratahi, ko ingoa, no Rotorua ahau. I'm a real estate agent and I own Airbnb and investment properties here in Rotorua. Thanks for allowing me to speak at the hearing about my submission that's opposing the commercial rates for short-term accommodation. So before I begin, I did just want to say that I've watched 75% of the online hearings, so I've changed my submission accordingly. Is that okay? Oh, sweet. Okay. So I'm very concerned about, I'll have to speak fast so I can get it all in 5 minutes. I'm very concerned about the impact this could have on a global scale for our Rotorua tourist economy. We're world-renowned. In fact, in 2022, we were in the Forbes top 50 list of destinations to visit in 2023. This was in alphabetical order, so we didn't have a rank. And then in 2023, we were listed number 4 in the global booking.com top 10 destinations for 2024. No other New Zealand city was on either of those lists. Only our beautiful Rotorua Nui a Kahumatahoi was on there. So that makes me very proud. My written submission lists the differences between Airbnb accommodation and hotels and motels. The two are not the same. One is a home, it's even marketed as a home away from home, it's not a commercial building. I actually prefer hotel accommodation because of the services it offers that an Airbnb can't. There'll be people vice versa. The two have two different clientele, but are both equally important to our economy. A change of commercial rates will also impact the real estate market. It will be listed on the LIM. Solicitors, lenders and insurance companies all read the LIM and all have caused contracts to be cancelled because of red flags listed on the LIM. The purchaser, who is an owner-occupier, may have to pay commercial rates for lending, will certainly have to pay commercial council rates until the next year's rates have been reverted back. And if rates were changed to commercial, that may mean that the property could be zoned commercial too. And so when selling, this could open the property up to all sorts of trades wanting to open their business in a residential area. Airbnb had minimal impact on emergency housing. Previously, our government punished landlords by heightening risk levels and taking away tax benefits. And in the same breath, they looked after first home buyers by offering an interest-free loan of up to $250,000, home grants, use of KiwiSaver and low deposits. First home buyers impacted the housing shortage because they already lived in a home, whether with whānau or renting, and the homes that they purchased were usually in the price range of investment properties, which meant tenants then had to be evicted. Now that we have to register for GST if we own an Airbnb, whether we're one night or 365 nights, and now that the government is bringing back benefits for landlords, the Airbnb properties that are affected will probably naturally revert back to investment properties or back to putting it onto the open market for anyone to buy. So that could help with that issue anyway. And currently there's 523 properties listed for sale in Rotorua and 76 available for rent. My suggestion is all short-term accommodation pays a yearly registration fee to the council, $250 if you've got one or more bedrooms in your own home, $500 if it's detached or a subsidiary dwelling at your main home, $1,000 if it's a separate property. In addition, all short-term tourist accommodation charges a minimum or a minimal fee as a bed tax, and that includes hotels, motels, lodges, resorts. We all should have to on-charge that. More income again for the council. And this is common practice overseas. I beg the council, tai-ho on decision making for the next 12 months and form a working group. Jason Locke and Norman Donald are they run multiple Airbnb, so they could help. And if you needed a real estate perspective, I could be in there as well. And there's two additional ways I would like the council to make money, and one is charging registration for cats. I heard the submission for the SPCA, so money could come here, admin money taken out and then given straight to SPCA. And churches, and it should be based solely on their income or their donations as to what level of rates that they pay. So that's my submission finished, but I wonder if I could say something extra that's not relevant to the long-term plan, but it was relevant in my digging into stuff.
Very quickly, yes.
Yep, okay. So Airbnb, there's over 1,000, and on the Airbnb site you can only ever see 306 properties at any one time, no matter whether it's Rotorua, Tauranga, wherever. We've got headings that say Rotorua Bay Planning, that's fine, Rotorua Central, that's fine, but there's Rotorua Waikato, Rotorua District Waikato and Rotorua Thermal Holiday Park Springfield. These are all headings under Airbnb. So I looked up the 306 for Rotorua Bay of Plenty. When I looked the other night, out of that 306, there were almost 200 properties that were Tauranga, the Mount, Papamoa, places that aren't even Rotorua. And when I looked at Rotorua Central, there was about 80 that, let alone not central here, they weren't even part of our township. And as I said, where we're in now, and globally, people don't know, they'll assume Tauranga is just a suburb of Rotorua. So we could be losing money into our economy because people are trying to do something with the system, and I was hoping council might be able to help with that voice, because it's incoming for everything to Airbnb sites or whatever sites. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much,
Right,
Jodie. We appreciate your research and insights into this. Thank you. I'd now like to invite Abby Dodds. And this is hearing number 343, elected members. Welcome.
Kia ora koutou. Just bear with me. I'm not very good at public speaking, so bear with me. Thanks for your time today, Mayor Tapsell and councillors. Sit closer, you can hear me. So my name is Abby Dodds, and I'm here today to talk about the East Rotoiti and Rotorua sewage scheme price blowout. A little background for you. My family owned a property on leasehold land at Lake Rotorua between September 2017 and April 22. I moved to Lake Rotorua full-time in November 2019 into our family home with my mum, Johnette Mead, who you've spoken to before. So we still have strong connections and ties to Rotorua and Rotoiti and Rotoihu through numerous volunteer roles, family, friends, and also as head admin on our 1,700 member strong Facebook community page. Very hopeful to return to Rotorua as a full-time resident again someday very soon, depending on the outcome of all of this. As you're aware, we have a very fiercely resilient and strong, passionate little community out there, supportive, empathetic. They have endured a lot over the last 4 to 5 years, lockdowns, then going into a managed retreat with the flooding of the lakes, which we are still effectively in, I believe. I don't think that's been lifted, the managed retreat, I'm not too sure. So they've had a lot going on, the community, the businesses, the homes flooding, and now an $88,000 bill for the sewage system. While we're still in a managed retreat, it's a lot. It's a lot to process for a lot of our community. They say that communication is the key to a successful relationship, attentiveness and consistency. Without it, there is no relationship. Where was the communication and the transparency about the budget blowing out over these last 3 years especially? There's been no communication, just a bill and this long-term plan. It's a really scary thing for many of the residents. During the time that we were in Rotorua, what we witnessed, or what we witnessed there was, we actually met 2 project managers over the time. Let's just say, for example, their names were maybe Mitch and Doug. First crew on the job was the Infracore guys. Then we went into lockdown and we didn't see that team again. I believe it was Fulton Hogan that came back after that. Our personal property, our septic system wasn't dug in enough. It needed to go in a metre deeper. So we ran an Airbnb at the time, and having our lawn ripped up, the whole section, twice in about 2 years was pretty hectic. Just mud everywhere. It was like being in Dubai in our back lawn. Sorry, well, that was loud. What we witnessed and watched through the installation was lack of expertise and knowledge, lacking basic skill and understanding of the project that they were working on. They attempted to connect our system the first time it was installed, but as the old saying goes, you cannot push shit uphill. And I'm just going to shine a little bit of a light on my role as admin on our community page. So we have 1,700 members on there at present, and over the last year, especially since the manager retreat has become in place, and we haven't had a meeting point at the lake to go and meet up, so all of our beaches everywhere has been underwater. The barbecues have been underwater. The only place where people have been able to communicate is over the Facebook page and between messages or over the fence with your neighbour. So the anguish, depression, the other raw emotions that myself and the other admins see almost on a daily basis, in light of the surge scheme situation and the manager retreat, there are a lot of people hurting and suffering out there and terrified. They're in fear, which is not good for their health. We're still waiting for our civil defence plan for the manager retreat if the lake floods again. There was talk about that happening out there. That hasn't come about. There was talk about it. I'm not too sure what's going on there. So basically, to summarise, what we want council to do is to take the sewage scheme off your long-term plan and revisit all the pricing and how we, in a much fairer way, can reach an agreement. Take it off the LTP. We need time. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much, Abby, for speaking to us. You did very well. Thank you. I'd now like to invite Rotorua Marae and Wiremu Emery to speak to this. Tēnā korua.
Kia ora. My name is Wiremu Emery. I'm a single father, and I've brought my youngest son here to see this today. As he and his brother and sister are going to be in charge of my land interests in the future. I'm here on behalf of Rotorua Marae as a trustee. I'm also a homeowner in Rotorua, currently an active trustee in Waitangi Soda Springs, and incorporation chairman of Waioni 3B8. What rights do council have to charge rates to land blocks when they offer no services? This statement is tabled and reserved for another day. Today I'm here to speak about the reticulation service in Rotorua and Rotorua. Our communities at this time had two decisions: an approved OSET system or reticulation service. Quickly propaganda spread stating OSET would cost 30K, which was well out of the budget for any of our landowners. And we were promised a reticulation service would be cheaper and affordable. In 2015, I was part of a group of 8 owner beneficiaries of Homingi 9B3B. We were objectors to the resource consent for the sewage plant to be put on our land. And we were not just opposing RLC, but also our trust and my father, William Emery, who was the chair at the time. As a group, we didn't want to have raw sewage enter our land. We fought RLC long and hard against grinder pumps for septic tanks. We engaged with council and signed off on the action, wastewater only, to the plant. Grinder pumps out, septic tanks in. In fact, what was best for us, we believe, was a two-stage septic tank, and furthermore, the system had a name, Biolytics. We thought if there was natural disasters, properties would be self-sufficient, which suited our situation of being in a rural setting. If history is what we can judge on, have a look at what happened in Taupo on July 3rd, 2019, where raw sewage poured into Lake Taupo from broken piping network created from grinder pumps. There has been a lot of time wasted in engagements where council didn't get their way, pricing for that. Was infrastructure planning done before, during or after contracts were sought for? Because wastewater only is entering the plant, was the plant overpriced? I saw and heard conflicts of interest existing within RLC, and I implore you to look into all of these matters and deal with those responsible, as we now see other communities are affected. We have a lot of low-earning families and retirees living in our communities that could possibly lose their homes over your pricing of 45K, 88K over 25 years in your 10-year plan. So please uphold your original agreement with up to 30% increase, not a 300% increase you're currently offering us. Nā mihi.
Ngā mihi nui ki a koe hoki. Thank you very much for taking the time to come in and make that submission in person too.
Kia ora.
Helen Shaw, are you okay to do your submission now? Yes. We welcome Helen Shaw. This is hearing 271.
Hello, Mayor and councillors. I am a long-term resident of Rotorua, have seen the lake rise and fall several times and its effect on residents, but that was not all that was to come. I have been a committee association member for over 30 years and heard heartfelt fears from residents from Rotorua and Rotoiti East regarding their $45,000 sewage costs blowout. Mayor and councillors, you have also heard and read written submissions from residents. These are real fears. The Environment Court hearing and findings in 2013 were a shock but expected for the residents. And I'll read you out what the Environment Court findings were. Council's failure to consult. Number 2, council's deliberately turning away from a cooperative approach. Consulting. It didn't happen, it's still not happening. Turn over the page. Number 3, council giving false testaments. Number 4, from the Environment Court. This is a real biggie. The Environment Court queried the necessity of reticulation at Rotorua because of the trophic indexes and the pure lake. So therefore our septic tanks, which mostly were managed properly, were working. Number 5, difficulty in obtaining documents from the council. Number 6, misleading the court and failure to provide information. Now, these are all serious points, and I don't know if you've been aware of them. This goes back to 2013. This Environment Court decision was 2013, and nothing has changed since then, and that was 11 years ago. So it's pretty shameful. Nobody learned anything. Consultation about a sewage scheme commenced, believe it or not, 1995 to 97, 28 years ago. This is when this was first mooted. We did elect you councillors and mayor, I know most of you are new, to act for us in our best interests. Have you the moral fibre to find a solution and change the culture existing since 2013? Under the Local Government Act, you are responsible for our well-being, something that's not functioning or happening at Rotorua and Rotoiti. We are prepared to pay $14,500, and for a lot of people that's a struggle, as promised. And thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I hope I have made myself clear to all. And most importantly, you can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen. I'd now like to invite Bernard John Messmer. This is 357, and you are being given a handout for this at the moment. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here today and giving me this opportunity to express. I've made copies for you that I hope you will read, and because we only have 5 minutes, I thought it's more beneficial to maybe just pull a few of those points out. I've lived in Oxford Road at 53 for about 7 years, and before buying this property, I lived for 28 years on Kapiti Coast in 2 properties, all with septic tank systems. So I've for over 30 years had a septic tank, and I found them to be efficient and work well if you get them sucked out when they need maintenance. And you know, they don't cost council anything. They are the responsibility of the landowner. I was suddenly told I'm getting a new system. It's called a step tank. My septic tank was functioning fine, that doesn't need power, got pulled out, and since then I've had this thing that I thought was going to cost $14,000-15,000. December last year my alarm system started going off, and to cut to the chase, after 48 hours of a lot of chaos and 7 different people, 5 call-out crews, they worked out my floats were faulty, even though it's near new, and they were replaced. Then my power bill over about last 6 months went doubled to normal over summer, which surprised me, and I found something, I couldn't work out why that was happening. My heat pumps weren't on, it was a mystery. And then I noticed whenever I was in the garden, I could hear my pump going in the step tank. So I called in council, they got in a contractor, electrical guy. He opened up the lid for the fluids, and then stated that the tank was completely empty, and what had happened since for 6 months basically was it sucked out all the fluid all the time. That pump had been running 24/7 for 6 months. And what actually happens is when it goes below a level about this high, the float doesn't float, so it doesn't activate the alarm. So what actually then happens is you've got an electrical pump running, and it's not my area. I just thought that's weird. It's always, I hear this thing. So this man said these step tanks are failing all over the place. He's dealing with it all the time as a subcontractor. He pointed out that the step tank pumps, they can't get the proper parts, so they're using a different float now. He also showed me that next to the lid of my fluid tank, there's a little round thing that is like that, where all the connectors are for the electricity coming for the pump and all the things. And it should be about this high above the ground. Mine's been installed, as most of them, he said, into the ground, and they have a hole in the bottom that when they're above the ground, moisture can drip out. But if they're buried, like they're all buried apparently, whenever it rains, they flood. And all the electrical things are sitting in water and corroding. So he said it's destined to fail. Now, my question is this: who decided, and this is something I'm aware you inherited all this, but I would like the present council to actually investigate who made the decision for these septic tanks to be pulled out and these step tanks put in. I believe at Rotorua there's a worm tank system. This contractor told me that's even worse, even more unreliable, because people use chemicals to clean their toilet. It kills the worms. Fulton Hogan have the contractor bring new live worms that they throw back in, and then they get killed again. Now, this is costing a lot of money to a lot of people, and we're getting now the bill apparently. But what I say to council is, we had a system that worked, and the landowner was responsible. The council had no responsibility. Now, someone created this of authority, and then council enforced it. I'd like the mayor to please find out who that was, because it's a mess. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Bernard. Elected members, we'll take a short break now until 2:45 when we expect our next submitter to be available, and we're just going to see if one of them wishes to present a little bit earlier. So 10-minute break until 2:45. Thank you. stream and ready to get back to our long-term plan hearings. The next submitter that I'd like to welcome forward is Peter Lewis. Welcome, Peter, and we have 5 minutes for your submission, and there will be a timer here for you as well. The verbal submission, elected members. So you do have a handout in front of you.
Reasonable that a property such as ours, which has been and is still our home for 42 years, and which we have paid not immodest rates over the years, including now, that it should be caught because we happen to rent it for a few days a year, based on the basis that we advertise it as available for more times. We live in this house for over 300 days a year and have done for 40 plus years. So it seems that as far as properties like ours are concerned, the whole policy has been ill.
Main points of this, if you wish.
No, so I misunderstood because I was advised that there would be questions.
I'm very sorry. You should have been advised that there are not questions as part of the hearing.
I've got nothing further to add that isn't in my earlier written paper.
Thank you very
All right.
much, Peter.
Thank you.
We appreciate your... I'd now like to invite Jim to make his submission. Jim Stainton, and this is 3.
Kia ora koutou. As you probably see from my submission, I've raised 2 issues and speak mainly on one of them, the sewerage. Just to touch briefly on the issue of the water supply, I just want to I appreciate that Council has heeded the call for a further investigation and has it on the books, but disappointingly it's still some way down the track. So I just urge you to review the priority and look to expedite proceedings. I just want to turn to the sewerage scheme. As you know, I'm a committee member on the Community Association, and I've been a long-time advocate for Rotorua affairs, and I'm here in support of the community position and the sentiments that you've heard many times over now, the obvious concerns and the fears and the shortcomings and the recriminations. And although they come from several different perspectives, there's some common threads. These are that the capital cost to the property owners should not exceed the constantly advised $14,000 to $15,000. Anything above that is inequitable and unaffordable to a significant section of our community. The additional costs now proposed have never been communicated directly to the property owners, and no consultation has taken place. All costs outside of external subsidy should be more fairly and equitably shared. That is not achieved through targeting 30.48 million to 770 property owners and just 1.155 million or 2.08 million to the other 27,000 district beneficiaries. To reiterate and substantiate some of the principal issues raised in this submission, the pay up front capital cost to property owners in all of the completed schemes so far has ranged from $6,000 to $12,700. The total overall cost of all of those 9 to 10 schemes is less than this cost alone on this scheme. It's hugely puzzling, to say the least, that the $15 to $20 million scheme blowout reported to the Lake Strategy Group in early 2021 has never been directly communicated to the property owners and nor consulted on. It can only be concluded that Council genuinely anticipated recovering those costs directly from the government by way of a reallocation of the existing deed funding and an additional $10 million MFE grant to account for the inflation. More than $250 million has purportedly been spent on the Rotorua lakes on measures to try and improve them. Much of that has been expended by the Regional Council, with a major chunk being on interventions to improve Lake Rotorua. Much of the degraded water quality in Lake Rotorua is courtesy of Lake Rotorua. Most of that expenditure is recovered via the Rotorua Lakes Program targeted rate, which is equalised across all ratepayers, urban and rural, and is currently $162 per annum for most of the properties that are under 2 hectares in the district. In other words, we have all been paying for the clean-up of our lakes, particularly Lake Rotorua, for the benefit of current and future generations. Property owners have had virtually no control over the circa $20 million blowout on this scheme since around 2020, and neither have they been consulted on it, and they shouldn't be expected to pay for that cost. I believe there is a reasonably clear pathway to resolving this untenable situation, such as proposed in the submission. But to put that more succinctly, I suggest that the additional $10 million grant sought from MFE, whether forthcoming as a loan or ultimately covered by council debt, should in any event be treated as subsidising the balance of the 50% government share in accordance with the original conditions of the deed, and as such regarded separately from the outstanding cost. That would leave the residual balance of $20.48 million plus the existing RLC contribution of $1.155 million, which could then be equally allocated 50% to the scheme property owners and 50% to the rest of the 27,000 district beneficiaries, using a similar rationale to that of Bay of Plenty Regional Council with its Rotorua Lakes program. It is suggested that this proposition would more closely align with the requirements of Section 1013 of the Local Government Act, which, as Council will be aware, requires explicit funding considerations regarding the distribution of benefits and the overall impact on the full well-beings of the community. It's my contention that the current proposal fails to recognise, firstly, that improved water quality in Lakes Rotorua and Rotorua are benefits enjoyed by the entire community over multiple generations and not just those existing ratepayers owning properties under the scheme catchment. Secondly, the declining water quality in Lake Rotorua is due to a broad range of factors, including high nutrient inputs from Lake Rotorua prior to the construction of the Oho Wall in 2007, and local sewage is only one small part of the contributing factors. And lastly, if the cost overruns are allocated only to the scheme ratepayers, the overall impact of this liability on the current and future social, economic, environmental and cultural well-being of that community will be absolutely devastating. Ngā mihi. Thanks for listening.
Ngā mihi. Thank you very much, Jim, and lovely to see Mary here too. Thank you. And we now welcome Mary Stanton. This was a submission, however, apologies, I don't have the number in front of me. Welcome, Mary.
Kia ora, Rotorua. District Council. I was born on the Oho Channel in 1946. I am of Ngāti Pikiao, Ngāti Awa and Ngāti Te Tākinga descendant. Taking the sewage out of the lakes is an environmental issue. Ngāti Pikiao have been kaitiaki and protectors of Lake Rotorua for centuries, and it is only since colonial occupation that our lakes have become dumping grounds. Under the Treaty of Waitangi, the government should take responsibility for these environmental stuff-ups from the past and pay more towards the Rotorua sewage scheme. In May 1991, a week before my father, Stan Newton, died, he said the prayers and karakia to mark the opening of the new $35 million Rotorua sewage plant. The strength and the support came from all iwi and hapu, both locally and beyond. Moria residents paid $4,000 and Okawa Bay paid $7,000 for their sewage scheme then. Rotoiti and Rotorua should not, I repeat, Rotoiti and Rotorua should not be forced to pay $30,000 to $45,000 for a sewage scheme due to the environmental mistakes made by past governments and local authorities. Kia ora koutou katoa. Thank you very much for listening to my submission.
Thank you very much, Mary. Elected members, it appears we have no other submitters. So we will take a break and we will take our afternoon break now until 3:30, as we have had one cancellation after the break. So we will return just before 3:30 to hear from further submitters for the rest of the evening. Thank you. Everybody, we will reconvene the final portion of this afternoon's long-term plan hearings. Just a reminder, this is being live streamed, so please have your mobile phones on silent. And it is my pleasure to invite Russell and Lorraine Kringle to make their submission. Welcome, Russell and Lorraine. And just a reminder, you do have 5 minutes, but we'll have a timer just over here to help you keep to time.
Good afternoon to all you guys here that turned up this afternoon along with us to hear our submission. You've received our written one, and I've just done a brief over of what that actually is. In our written submission to the Rotorua Lakes Council regarding the long-term plan suggested rates increase for short-term accommodation, we emphasise the unique value of short-term accommodation and providing personalised high-quality lodgings, which is critical to Rotorua's tourism image and lifestyle. We highlighted the slow return of overseas visitors and the effects it has on all businesses in Rotorua. Imposing a rates increase on short-term accommodation would have a drastic effect on available quality accommodation in Rotorua and a massive effect on Rotorua businesses in general. It has been suggested that approximately 50% of all visitors to Rotorua would not come if they had to stay in motels and hotels. We argue against Council's proposals that we believe unfairly target short-term accommodation providers. These include, but not limited to, the imposition of additional economic development rates and a reclassification as commercial entities for standalone properties, while leaving integrated short-term accommodation providers mostly free of additional rates charges as stated at the Rotorua Lakes Council public meeting. The Rotorua Lakes Council needs to recognise there are other businesses operating from private homes for which Rotorua Lakes Council has chosen to ignore, but rather have singled out short-term accommodation providers. We advocate strongly for maintaining the current status quo. We pointed out to the Rotorua Lakes Council that they recognise the independent promotional efforts of short-term accommodation providers worldwide. Furthermore, we express concerns about inadequate communications from the Council and suggest improvements, such as timely notifications. We recommend that the Rotorua Lakes Council needs to enhance the understanding of short-term accommodation, acknowledging the benefit it brings to the Rotorua area as a whole. We propose Rotorua Lakes Council explore alternative funding sources, as has been highlighted by central government statements in 2024, who stated some properties do not contribute to council rates throughout New Zealand. In 2019, an international visitors conservation and tourism levy was applied at $35 to international visitors to assist regions with costs incurred by visitors throughout New Zealand. This levy is suggested to be more than double in yesterday's government budget, expected to be $261 million over 4 years. But here we see the Rotorua Lakes Council wanting to apply additional costs directly to short-term providers over and above these funds that are available to be applied for. We propose that the Rotorua Lakes Council look at other regions in New Zealand who have sought to apply a levy on visitors to the area and the legality of such a levy if feasible here in Rotorua. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Russell. We don't take questions, but were there any final points that yourself or Lorraine wish to make?
No, that's good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We really appreciate you taking the time to come in and share your submission.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our next submitter will be by Zoom, so we'll just get them up and running before we begin. And elected members, this is John Collins from Retirement Villages Association of New Zealand, hearing 354. Welcome, John.
Yes, kia ora, good afternoon everyone. How are you? Hope you're all well.
Yes, we are, and we hope you're well too. We can hear you coming through, but sometimes it is a little bit quiet for us. If you please won't mind using a loud voice when you make your submission, but we are ready for you to make your submission now. You have 5 minutes, and I'll just politely let you know if that time does come up, at which stage you can sum up your submission. But thank you very much, John. This is John from Retirement Villages Association of New Zealand. When you're ready, thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Basically, just a word about the RVA. We represent the interests of the owners, developers and managers of retirement villages. I think I've appeared in front of the council on several other occasions to talk about this, that and the other, but essentially we represent about 96% of the retirement village industry by unit number. We've got around about 51,000 residents, which is 14% of the over 75 population across New Zealand as a whole. And I drew out some figures for Rotorua district from the 2018 statistics. Unfortunately, last year's not quite ready yet, but you have, or you had in 2018 anyway, 4,235 residents aged over 75, of which 540 lived in a retirement village, one of 18 villages in the district, about 12.6% of the over 75s. So quite clearly, if you look at the national average compared with Rotorua, there is significant capacity for more villages and more residents. When I first joined the association 17 years ago, retirement villages were a bit of a boutique offering, but today they are now a mainstream provider of housing for older people, and quite clearly the demand, 130 people move in every week across New Zealand, reflects that. I just wanted to touch on some of the key factors which distinguish a retirement village development from a conventional housing residential development. For example, we have on average about 1.3 people per unit, which is around about half the average residential development of about 2.6. As far as vehicle movements are concerned, retirement village residents have maybe 3 vehicle movements a day compared with 10 vehicle movements in a conventional residential development. The villages offer our independent living residents, and we want to draw the distinction between independent residents in a retirement village compared with residents in a care facility, which have varying needs of dependency. But we have, villages offer extensive on-site amenities, such as libraries, cafes, often a swimming pool, cinema, all those sorts of things. So therefore, there is less demand on the council infrastructure. And I know Somerset in their submission, which we obviously strongly support, goes into that in far more detail than I need to here, certainly in this 5 minutes. Other councils have recognised that retirement villages are not residential developments, and of course have therefore, as a result, adjusted their development contributions as in return. And I point to Tauranga City, Auckland City, Christchurch and Cavity to take four councils which offer retirement villages a discounted HUE or development contribution for the reasons which I've outlined. And I guess the point is that we would like to encourage Rotorua District to follow suit. Madam Chair, that was in essence all I had to say, which I understand is probably well less than 5 minutes. But if anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, John. We're not taking questions as part of this hearing process. However, you have summarised your points very well, and we appreciate you taking time to share a little bit more about the Retirement Villages Association of New Zealand.
Okay, well, Madam Chair, we're more than happy to take council and officers on village site tours if that will assist in the deliberation around not only the long-term plan, but also development contributions.
Thank you very much, John. We've noted that invitation. We appreciate it.
Okay, you're very welcome. All the best, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. Ka pai? He mihi tēnei ki te taru White, no te tātou o Te Aroa, nau mai hoki mai ki tō kaunihira. You have 10 minutes as part of our partnership board, so there will be a timer just over here, and we welcome you to make the submission on behalf of Te tātou o Te Aroa.
Kia ora. Tēnā koe te marakura me koe te hokinga me mo te kaunihira me ngā hapori. E hui hui mai nei tēnei rā kei te miho te ki au koutou. Yes, Madam Chair, Your Worship, I'm happy to present the submission on behalf of Tātou o Te Aroa. I am not alone. I'm here to carry the mandate of Te Aroa forward in the expectations of our relationship with the Council and the partnership space. Just a reminder, of course.
Sorry, I can see two of your members just walking into the hallway. Would you like to pause briefly for them to join you?
Only if they're going to contribute anyway.
Yeah. So, we are slightly running ahead of time. I didn't want them to freak out when they see you already presenting, and so they haven't missed you, but we're just... Sorry, we are running slightly ahead of schedule.
I don't mind.
Thank you. We'll reset your timer, and kia koutou.
As I've said, the three of us now come with the mandate of Te Aroa to present this long-term submission to our submission on the long-term plan. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to take it as read in terms of the submission itself. I must say that I often find it a little bit strange that we seem to be presenting to ourselves in the context of partnership from a submission point of view. But kei te pai tērā, you know, we carry that mandate given to us on 18th of December 2015, and that hasn't changed other than the fact that we recognise we're going through a partnership review. So in that space, we set out basically I guess some of the issues around our lack of participation in the conversations. We believe that it could have been a lot stronger in the areas that we have actually portrayed in the submission. But again, you know, our intent in future times is to add and continue to add value to the conversations and the decisions that this council makes under the notion of a partnership that we have with the Lakes Council. I want to basically dive right through down to the Vision 2050, because I think that's a strategic document that embraces the views of our people from times of origin to now and into the future for the next 30 years. It's a document that we note that the Council has embraced in the context of your future development strategies and your planning. We believe it's essential that the elements of that particular Vision 2050 document embody the conversations in a genuine partnership with Tātou o Te Aroa so that we can explore how that might be embedded, how it might be implemented. And as I said before, the best way to do that is to work with people who are mandated to do the job. And so we implore the Council, and we recognise that over the next couple of months that we hope to be in a position where we're more strategic in our connection with yourselves, and so the journey ahead can be more vibrant and more lively around those particular. So I'm not going to go through, Madam Chair, the different items. You see our view and intent, but like I said, the anchor point for us is the Vision 2050. And we can give it life, we can give it breadth and depth, not just for Te Aroa, but for the community as a whole. You know, because I could reel out the economics of Te Aroa and where we sit in all of this. I mean, it's well said and been presented before. And we want to bring that, bring that to the conversation collectively and to make the difference that I believe we can all enjoy. So, Madam Chair, I want to acknowledge my colleagues here who raced here to get here with a very short presentation on my behalf, or our behalf, and appreciate the support. But I don't, unless my colleagues have anything to add to that. It's very clear where our direction is on this particular one, and we look forward to an inspiring relationship with the Council where we can be innovative in addressing some critical issues that the Council has, and a number of which we've actually portrayed in this particular submission to you. So, hoi anō, Madam Chair, kei te mihi atu i au koutou, ko mutu te kōrero ki au koutou, nō reira, tēnei te mihi atu ki au koutou koutou. Oh, Madam Chair, I'd just like to say that I'd like to give a mihi to our Māori ward members. I know that there's a lot of stress and strain at the moment, and kia kaha, kia maia, kia manawa nui, in terms of the future contributions that hopefully you continue to make to the council as well. And we acknowledge that relationship of their role in the context of the wider populace, and our role specifically has been around Te Arawa. So, Madam Chair, I'll end on that note. Kia ora tātou.
Ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Thank you very much for being here in person to make the submission as well. Trevor, would you like to make your submission now? Okay, I now welcome Trevor Newbrook. This is submission 364 in your files. Welcome, Trevor.
It's not. Thank you, Your Worship and councillors, for having me here today. I'll be quite brief. I don't intend to read my submission. I guess you can all read, and we'll have done that. I just want to mention a couple of points. The first one being the reputation of Rotorua. It won't come as any surprise, but I firmly believe that until we clear up the homeless people that are living in our motels and backpackers, the reputation in Rotorua is just going to decline and get worse. I was in Nelson over the weekend. I was going to say it was 5 nights, and walking around Nelson City, I did see a person out begging. I didn't feel unsafe. The shops are full of people. It's a vibrant place, and somehow we need to get that back here. And the first thing we need to do is clean up the city. And I appreciate Your Worship and councillors' effort that you've put into trying to get extra police here and trying to get the place cleaned up and get things much better. The aquatic centre, I'd really like you guys to build a hydroslide there. My eldest daughter took her 4 children to the South Island in the holidays. They were discussing, they're at our house, they're talking about where they're going to go, and she's asking them, do you want to go down the west coast and go to the Franz Joseph Glacier, or do you want to go to Hamner Springs and go on the hydroslide? They said Hamner Springs. So she took them to both, just stayed a few extra days. But I just think, you know, we're talking about 10 to 16-year-old children. You go to Taupo and you see the amount of kids and people using the hydroslides there, and I just think a place like Rotorua, a tourist hub, should be offering that same sort of facility, and it's long overdue, so I totally support it. Short-term accommodation, I just can't understand the report. I can't understand what they're actually trying to achieve, or what's trying to be achieved. It talks about housing. It's going to make more housing, is it? Is there such a shortage of housing? The people that we have living in motels and that are not housed, there's other reasons why those people are not living in accommodation. If you go on to Trade Me, you'll see there's lots of accommodation available that other people can get. So 800 to 1,000 homes being used for short-term accommodation, that tells me there's a huge demand for this type of accommodation. So let's shut it down and send those people on holiday, that all those people that come overseas, 800 to 1,000 of them, every day, that are coming here, let's send them to stay in a house in Taupo or in a house in Tauranga, because that's what will happen. These people are not going to go and stay in a hotel. They're certainly not going to go and stay on a motel in Fenton Street. There's a worldwide move to people to stay in homes or units or flats or whatever whatever you want to call it, that type of accommodation. So I just think it's just way out of line with what should be happening. At this point, I realise I printed this quite small. The other point there I have there is it concerns me in the report that it talks about the only people that are making any money out of this are the property owners. I think we have to look at the tourist attractions, the restaurants, the bars, the petrol stations, all the shops in town, the supermarkets. There's a lot of other people making money out of this. Also, the people who are managing these property are making money. The lady who goes and cleans these places, spends a couple of hours there every time someone stayed, they're making money. I think it just, someone goes there to cut the grass. So there's a lot more to it than just saying the only person who makes any money is the property owner. It almost sounds a little bit... The tone of the report almost sounds like it's been written by a socialist who doesn't like people making money. Also on the vacant land, I think for years we've had this thing about user pays. The user should be paying, and all of a sudden now it's being suggested that if you've got a vacant section that you should be paying because that'll make you build a house on it. It doesn't add up. It doesn't add up with what I've heard from this council and other councils right across the country for the last 35 years that users should pay. My final thing that I want to mention, Madam Chair, is about the Springfield Golf Course. I'd really, really like to see this council give that golf course a 33-year lease and just let them get on with it. They could plan, they could make that golf course work. I think it's quite publicly known that there's our race courses under threat, so that could be gone. That's a big green space. The Eureka Copper Golf Course is now out of public ownership. We don't know what will happen with that. I understand the owners want to keep it as a golf course, but that's the people who are in charge now. 5 years, 10 years, there'll be different people. We could see that golf course gone. So I think the Springfield Golf Course should be saved as a large green space right in the middle of town. So please do it. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Trevor. We appreciate your submission.
Cheers.
We just have a short break as submitters are starting to arrive, but we'll just wait a couple of minutes to see if they are ones we're expecting to present now or are ready to present now. I'd like to invite Peter Jex Blake to make his submission. And just a reminder, submitters have 5 minutes and we will have a timer just over here to help you.
Yep, we have a property at Haupari Bay, Lake Rotorua, and I'm submitting on the new septic tank system that's been installed. Main point of contention, I guess, is that when we signed up to the scheme, I can't remember how many years ago, it was estimated to be around about 15 to 20,000 per property. So we signed up on the basis that we thought there would be somewhere around about what the cost per property would be. Ours was one of the first properties to have it installed. I can't remember, it must have been about, it was 2020 probably, I think. It was in January and we were told it would take roughly 3 to 4 days. It took twice as long as what was estimated. Due to high water table, mainly. I questioned the supervisor, Fulton Hogan, if this is just virtually job one, what's going to happen when you get further down the track? If this job's taken twice as long as was estimated, the cost is obviously going to be just about double to what we're informed. He said, well, the arrangement is that council, government, someone will pick up the tab, but pretty well this is what we've estimated for the properties. So I've said no more. Had I known that the we sort of hear it all future came out through the grapevine, it was going to cost just about double or more than double, I would have said something right at the beginning to say there's no way they're going to do it within what we've the estimate they've given. So I'd just like you as councillors to consider if you're putting a septic tank system in at your own property, you get a contractor in, he gives you an estimate of a job, around about 15 to 20,000, 5 or 6 years later, yep, I'm ready to go. So you say, he doesn't alert to you that there's any likely increases in the cost to what was estimated. 2 or 3 years later, he gives you the bill and it's, well, we still don't know whether it's going to be 40 or 50,000 or what it might be, but it's going to be easily double. What, as an owner of a property, what would you do? Would you, if it was me, well, it is me, I'd say, well, hang on, if you knew it was going to be that much, I would have been informed before you started the job, so I had the opportunity to question the costings and maybe get another quote or another estimate. So that's where we're at. And as an individual, I don't think any individual will accept that. You would negotiate to say, well, how are we going to reduce the cost? Otherwise, we'll see you, it's probably within the parameters of a small claims tribunal. I mean, that's just how it would be. We've never had, as far as I'm aware, any written indication from the council or Fulton Hogan to say this job is blown out. You know, I still don't think there's anything official. I don't think anybody knows at the minute what is the total cost going to be. So apart from high water tables, that could easily have been anticipated before they started. A dragger with a post hole borer could have dug a metre down and seen the water table is higher than what it is. It's going to take twice as long to pump out. We had generators and pumps going 24/7 for 3 or 4 days. It was just on our property. Apart from that, there are archaeological digs which took place. They might pull up some skeletons of goats or sheep or whatever. I don't know how much this had been factored into the costing. There's obviously other cultural aspects of the job which I don't quite know who wears the cost. There's community centres, maraes, which cater for quite a few hundred people. Obviously the system has to be somewhat more substantive than what for myself as a property owner would have to put in. We don't know is that just being spread across all the property owners? So I just think as a process, it's been badly run, and as a ratepayer, we should not have to pick up the tab for bad planning comes back to the council. With I don't know, with Fulton Hogan, the arrangement they've got with Fulton Hogan, but there should have been a better process, and we should have been kept informed right along as to what, where it's going to go. Apart from the fact everybody enjoys the benefit of having cleaner water, we all want that, but there are plenty of other users of the lake other than the immediate property owners. So I guess I'm asking the council to consider, when it comes to charging us property owners, that we are actually not going to bear the whole cost of the blowout. And for myself, and there'll be enough of us, it's just not in any situation acceptable to finally get a bill which is double what we signed up to. Otherwise, we would have not have signed up. We would have gone to the council and said, well, there's got to be a better option. There's got to be, we've got to work a way around to finding a more cost-effective way of dealing with the sewage.
Thank you very much, Peter. We appreciate you making your submission this evening. Thank you. I'd like to invite Colin. Now, Colin Guyton, although he will be presenting later on behalf of the Rural Community Board, this submission in particular is on behalf of Federated Farmers. So this is in a previous submission catalogue 5, submission number 137, if you wish to pull it up. Otherwise, Colin, you have 5 minutes and we'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Colin Guyton, Chairman of Taupo Rotorua Federated Farmers. We represent about 300 members in this region. I guess, and this is pretty quick because I know I've got 5 minutes, so I guess I have to say the consultation document doesn't offer rural people a lot, or it doesn't offer us anything new, but actually I think this shows prudence and good judgment on behalf of the council. I've decided I'd rather do a little, be slightly personal and just tell you what happens on my farm. So we milk 560 cows. We support 4 families. That's myself, my son and 2 staff. And last year we paid, in the last 12 months, 41,000 in rates. This doesn't include water rates, and what I'm just wanting to get across is that an 8.24% increase for rural people equates to $3,400 increase. So it's reasonably substantial, and I think most farmers will be expecting that because we're running businesses, so we know the council's a business and it's got the same issues as we do. So I'm not knocking it. I'm just trying to explain what that rate increase looks like to the average farmer. Initially, I said that the document doesn't offer anything new. However, it has taken some small benefits away from us. And the one that will be the one brought up the most will be about no more sealing of unsealed roads. That will be a hard one to sell to country people because, our roads are our lifeline. I think if you look out at the rural sector in the last 25 years, there's been a lot of sealing done, but in the last 5, it's just about stopped. And I don't know. I think it'll be a hard sell, and I mean I got no choice. Whatever decision you make. But I think that you need to take on board that rural people will want their roads sealed. For the fact that we pay road users on those roads, and also the unsealed roads have still got to be maintained, and quite often they're not maintained at a level that they should be. And I think when we had more unsealed roads, there was a grader around all the time, and they used to get maintained a lot more than they do now. Going on from that, we talk about, like, federated farmers will always bring up the uniform annual general charge. And this is because it can be set, from my understanding, be set between 0 and 30%. And Federated Farmers has done a lot of research and looked at every single council in the country. And our council is sitting at 9.72%. And it's there's only about 2 others that are lower than that. On average, most of them are between 15 and 25. And if you look in the document, under the 10.3 to 10.6, it says in there that it's more equitable and a fairer way of distributing rates. The other thing I have on my list is the community halls. Obviously, you know, what happened at Mamaku and Rotorua happened after the long-term plan had sort of been formalised, but I still think that it wouldn't be imprudent for us not to mention it and want some sort of planning, long-term, short-term, whatever planning around how and what we're going to do with our halls. I would add that we sent a letter from the Taupo branch in December before this happens, you know, showing concern at the level of problems that are in the hall. So, and the interesting thing about that, where Rotorua Taupo, all the Taupo members said, don't include us, our halls are in excellent condition and they have no issues. So I thought that was worth mentioning. So that's my submission. It's pretty brief, but sometimes it just pays to hit the points on the head that you want to hit.
Thank you very much, Colin. We appreciate it, and we look forward to hearing you later as well when you're ready.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next submitter is just on Zoom, so we will take a minute to get them connected. This will be Phil Thomas speaking on behalf of Lakes Community Board, which is 365 in your submission files. Welcome, Phil.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to come in and talk to you. I'm presuming you can all hear me. My apologies for not being able to present at my correct time on Wednesday. However, it does seem appropriate to have COVID and be having to present over Zoom. Also, seems a bit appropriate too to be presenting to you at the end of your 2-week marathon of oral submissions, of hearings from everyone. Because I know a lot of those submissions you've been hearing and reading over the last 2 weeks come from the Lakes communities area, from my constituents. So perhaps I can do a little sum up of what you've been listening to. And I know, look, a lot of those oral submissions especially have been from people out around East Rotorua and Rotorua talking about the proposed rate for the sewage scheme out there. So I might just say a few words about that. I'll take our submission, long as it is, as read, and just talk to the general outlines. So you will have heard over the last 2 weeks some anger, some blame being apportioned to people, some anguish. You have quite likely seen some tears. What I'm going to say is actually what you were hearing there was a community in panic. So the proposed rate that was put out in the LTP was an absolute shock to everyone. They have been being told, as I'm sure they've told you, for the last 10 years, that the scheme is going to cost between 12 and slowly eking its way up towards $14,000, $15,000. If you talk to your staff, if you talk to your chief financial officer, if you have a conversation with him and ask him the question, he will tell you that he expects that a lot of people in that community will struggle to even afford a $15,000 rate. A rate higher than that, any higher than that, and you will have mass rate defaults. People just won't be able to pay. Now, that isn't because they don't want to share their burden of improving our lakes. Everyone wants to see our lakes' water quality improved. It's simply that these two communities are amongst, if not the poorest in our district. Now, statistics show that average personal incomes in the area, depending exactly which community you're in, range between $23,000 and $28,000 a year. Now, to put that in perspective, if you're on the minimum wage, you're earning up around $48,000 a year. So it just shows you how poor that community is. Culturally and as a community, it's incredibly rich and diverse, but economically, it is poor. That's just the facts. So what I'm hoping you will have done is have a look at the proposal that the Community Board has put forward as an alternative way of funding the scheme. We have road tested this out with community leaders and found support there. We have road tested it at council to check that it is viable in terms of finding alternative ways of funding it. And let's be honest, the only way you can reduce the direct rate to the community at Rotorua is by adding more on the whole of the Rotorua community. But what we're talking about is adding dollars to the whole of the Rotorua community and taking off thousands of dollars to the Rotorua community. Now, I know you can't ask questions at the moment, but I really do encourage you to have questions. Please feel free to give me a phone call, ring me up, email me, whatever. I'm happy to come in and talk to you in person at council next week. You've got the big task of doing your deliberations. Anything I can do to help you in terms of especially looking at alternative funding, please do get in touch with me. I'd really like to be able to help with that. I think that's all I'll say on East Rotorua, except I do want to say this. Over the course of that scheme, which is one of the schemes that is, all our other schemes have taken 2 or 3 years to happen. Rotorua has taken 13 years, and that is where some of the issues lie. We've had changes in personnel, we've had inflation has been large over that period of time, but what I want to say is that everyone who's been involved in that scheme, from the community through to staff members, in my experience, have worked with the absolute best will and ability and care for those communities that anyone could have, and I do really want to acknowledge that. Okay, look, as you will have gone through our submission, you would have seen that we haven't agreed with much that you have in your long-term plan, and I'm really sorry for that. I do think that that sort of shows the benefit of engaging more closely with your community boards when you're dividing your proposed long-term plans and annual plans. We know our communities intimately, and we should be a resource that you are using to help you come up with better models and better proposals to put out. So, you know, I look forward into the future to being able to help you more than currently. Right, I'll move on and just, excuse me looking down, I'm just flicking back to our proposal. Look, the next item that was huge for our community was the short-term rentals, and once again, I'm not necessarily just going to go over what I said in our submission. I am just going to say that it is very different out around the lakes. Our properties out around the lakes aren't properties that are ever going to be available for long-term rent. Now, when I sold my place out here and looked to rent a place, it took me 6 months to find somewhere to live, and that was because someone took pity on me and said, look, you can stay in our batch, but we need it over summer. And so I would stay there during winter and decamp for 2 or 3 months over summer every year, until finally a friend of mine who was a permanent resident was moving away from the area and said, Phil, you can rent my place. And that took me 2.5 years to get there. There aren't a lot of long-term rentals, and our batches are exactly that. They're people's batches. They want to use them. I'd also say that we don't see the proposal to rate on availability as being fair. We'd support a rate on 60 days rented, and most probably, a shorter period of time rented. We had a look around. We like what Queenstown is doing, where it's a voluntary rate, and also like what Auckland was doing, where it's 28 days, and then you start paying a percentage of your rates, 75% domestic, 25% of the commercial, rising to 100% commercial when you get up to that sort of 180-day rent. Now, both those councils have tried to bring something in and have been challenged, and they have come up with solutions that are going to work and have been road tested. I think if council goes out with a 60-day availability, you will be challenged on it. I think it's much better to go with a scheme that has been tested and will get over that hurdle of being acceptable out in the community. So we would support Rotorua Council picking up something like the Auckland scheme. Moving along, the next thing that we mentioned was the rural street improvements. I just want to say this was a fund that had been dropped, was brought back in at the last long-term plan, specifically to address issues in the rural communities and lakes communities of where just works had not able to be done. The money just was never found. Even then, that money was being shared not just between the rural and lakes areas, but every second year with the city. We were looking forward to, in the lakes area, this coming year being the year that finally we saw some money being put towards developing, I'm not even going to call them footpaths, I'm going to call them safe areas beside the roads where people could walk. We have some very dangerous areas, both out at Lake Tarawera and going down to Stony Point Reserve, but especially out at Rotorua, going around the lake edge, where the state highway is right to the edge of the available space. At the moment, children getting off the school bus are having to walk on the road around blind corners. It's just amazing no one has been hit or killed there. That is an area where we've had about 4 cars go off the road in the last 5 years as well. It's a dangerous section of road, even at low speed. So we would really like to see that money retained at 140,000 per year. It is, I'm not even going to say it's margin of error money. It's invisible money to you. It is such a small percentage, it's 0.01% of your budget. So we would really support that money remaining.
Thank you, Phil. That has been 10 minutes, but I want to let you finish if you'd like to summarise your final points.
Oh, sure, great, thank you. Look, I was going to talk quickly about the Lakes Infrastructure Fund and also our community funding. Lakes Infrastructure Fund, please put some money aside for rebuilding out at Rotorua and Rotorua. That is not something that can be put off for 10 years. Those lakes are getting back to normal levels now. We know not what needs to be done. The final thing I would just say is about our community board funding. Look, we see that as being vital to us being able to perform our roles out in the community, and actually we're cheap labour for you. The benefits that come out of that small amount of money you give us, and once again, it's below margin of error, is is of huge benefit, not just to our local community, but to the whole Rotorua community. The other thing I'd ask is also if we could spend that money over 2 years. We lose it at the end of a year if we haven't spent it. It makes it really hard to fund our projects, and with inflation, our projects are costing more and more. So if we were reduced to 50,000, to be honest, we've done all that low-hanging fruit for under 50,000. You know, we've picked all those things up. We're now into bigger projects that have major impacts on our community. So look, I will leave it there. I will wish you all the best for next week for your deliberations. Draw breath over the long weekend. Have a nice relax. And I know it's a huge task that you have facing you. And as I have said, if you have any questions about anything I've raised in our submissions, please do call me. I'd love to speak to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Phil. We appreciate you still being able to join us by Zoom, and we also note that kind invitation to discuss with you further if we need to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'd now like to welcome Michael Painter. Welcome, welcome to take a seat at the submitters table. Elected members, you have a handout for you just for your information, and Michael Painter is a verbal submission, so do not have the written submission in your files. When you're ready, Michael.
Okay, thanks for having me here today. Sorry, I'm not reading from the submission, so they're totally separate. And this is, it's just how I feel, okay? So I'm associated with the Lakeland Queen. So that boat has been purchased and we're in the process of returning it to where it should be, back on the lakefront. I've had discussions with Cassandra Crowley at TELTS, which have been really helpful and very positive. We are... Sorry. Okay. With what we are moving forward and endeavouring to do is to return it to the tourism market. We have had, as I said, we've had discussions with TELTS, which have been very positive. We've had discussions also with one of the PTE providers in Rotorua, and we're intending to turn around and, as well as the tourism aspect, use the boat as a training point of view for work experience to help the next generation get into employment. Now, the boat takes approximately 20 people to run it. Okay, we can offer additional workplace training for students going through any of the PTE programs, especially in the hotel tourism industry, and that will help them get qualifications to move on. We all go through life and we've done it, we learn, we need to pass things on to the next generation, and that's what we're trying to do here. We want to turn around and work with the community, get the community involvement, and we're not looking at this as being a short-term endeavour. It is a long-term endeavour. It's got to be a long-term contract between everybody. And at the moment, some days you wake up and you think, what have we learnt in life? A lot of the time, the younger generation doesn't want to know what we've learnt in life. But we can only do the best we can to help them. So we want to get the boat back there, get it back into tourism, get the employment back into the local community that should be there, get the money back into the community that should be there. Over the course of the next 3 years, it should be turning around and returning to the community close to $10 million. At the moment, that is money that is being taken from the community because it's not there. We can work with the boat being down where it was. Sorry. So we can work with the boat being where it was. There are upgrade works to be done to it. Obviously, with the cyclone damage and everything that happened to the wharf, we can work our way around there. I know there was talk of it's going to be $500,000 to build a new jetty. No, that's not the case. It will be substantially less than that. We would like to think that the council can turn around and see the benefits that we can bring to the community, to the council, and help us get the boat back on its feet. There's a lot of history in Rotorua which nobody talks about because nobody can get there. So no boats go out to Makoia Island. That is the heart of Rotorua. And who tells the tourists? Nobody. It's a blank page. It's not discussed. And it needs to be. And the boat potentially is one of the best ways for us to do it because we have a captive audience. They can't get off. Okay? With the current jetty situation, the easiest way forward with that is to rebuild it. It doesn't need replacing. We'd stay totally within the existing footprint, and we work with TOLT, we work with the council, and we work with the community. And yeah, sorry, that's it. Yeah.
And just to make it clear,
part two.
We have the funding for the boat, but we would like some assistance with the jetty, which we've asked for about $250,000, and there certainly will be more than $1 million put in the community every year once that's up and running. So it's a good business investment for the community as well.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Hey, yeah, I miss things out from time to time. Yeah, as you get older, you miss things out.
I think you covered it, but that succinctly summarised it. So thank you very much to you both for making this submission and also for providing councillors with this further information for us.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Our next submitter will be joining us by Zoom, so we'll just get them connected now. This is Roy and Robin Duffy, submission number 363 in your files. Welcome, Roy, and potentially Robin Duffy.
Hello.
Hello there, Roy. Can you hear us okay?
Just.
Okay, well, the good thing is we can hear you, which this is all about. So we have 5 minutes available for you to make your submission, which you can begin when you're ready, and I'll just politely let you know when that 5 minutes is completed.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. Now, we are Roy and Robin Duffy from Punawhakaria Bay, and I will present our case. You'll not be surprised that we remain very concerned about the draft long-term plan proposals for funding this scheme. Actually, a much stronger adjective is more applicable. We are pensioners and the proposed costs unexpectedly impact our precious retirement savings. Below, I ask several searching questions and close by making several solution recommendations. Question 1, does the Mangawai Kaipara District Council case provide assistance here? I'm not a lawyer, but in my stupidity, I've read the several hundred pages of the Auditor General's report and the Court of Appeal decision. The scourge schemes suffered very similar cost overruns. Their rating decisions were deemed unlawful under the Local Government Act. Question 2, did RLC learn from that experience? Perhaps not. Question 3, has RLC breached its statutory obligations under the Act in its management of the scheme, and or have decisions regarding borrowing, funding and consultation of cost overruns been unlawful? On the face of it, It may have. The Court of Appeal decision is very clear on Council's obligations that go to the very heart of local government to enable democratic local decision-making to promote community well-being. A comprehensive expert legal analysis of all facts would be necessary to determine if RLC has breached the Act. If so, it would potentially invalidate any rating decision that you make. Key for any public inquiry or legal action would be when RLC knew of cost overruns and whether timely disclosure was made, e.g. in the 2020 long-term plan, which I gather was silent on this. I gather that RLC already knew it had a 15 million cost overrun before commencing to install systems in East Rotorua, but did not disclose this to ratepayers. Your new CEO will no doubt be able to advise you on such exposure. Question 4. Is the proposed allocation of the rating for scheme cost increases to scheme ratepayers versus all ratepayers fair? Submitters have answered this question. The LTP proposal is extremely unfair. Question 5. Has RLC complied with Section 1013 of the Act? This seems to be a vulnerability for RLC, in my opinion. Councils must obtain funding from appropriate sources, including consideration of the community outcomes of this activity and the distribution of benefits between the community as a whole, any identifiable part of the community, such as scheme ratepayers, and individuals, and the period in which benefits will occur. The Act allows discretion to councils in determining funding sources after due consideration, which must be used reasonably, failing which could give grounds for judicial review. Any objective review of the scheme information clearly suggests that RLC's proposed 10-year plan does not comply with the requirements of Section 1013, or if approved, will have failed to exercise its discretion reasonably. Conclusion. If the 30 million of cost overruns are unfairly and unreasonably assigned to only the 770 scheme ratepayers and not all Rotorua district ratepayers, the overall effect on current and future social, economic, environmental and cultural well-being will be catastrophic. Ratepayers base their agreement to replace their septic tanks with a reticulated scheme to contribute to improving water quality based on the estimate of 35 million scheme costs, less subsidies, equaling approximately 14,100 per property. Most interpreted this as being inclusive of GST and including the indicated 30% contingency. They say the increase to 56 million scheme cost and 45,000 to property, or 88,000 over 25 years, announced only in April 24, is meaning they agree to the scheme under false pretences. My amateur analysis of the Act suggests that RLC would be exposed to legal challenge if this current plan is confirmed. Solution options to alleviate the current unfair allocation to scheme ratepayers. 1. Rotorua ratepayers should pay no more than the 14,000 to 15,000 estimate as originally estimated. 2. Convince other contributors to increase their contributions to the same percentage as their original agreed amount, represented at 35 million. 3. Increase the RLC contribution beyond 2.7 thousand and apply targeted rate to all district ratepayers to meet the increase. 4. Increase RLC lending within lending limits. 5. Remove the treatment plant cost from the scheme. This would help reduce the costs back to the 14,000. As far as I'm aware, ratepayers of all other lake sewerage schemes were not charged for the connection of their schemes to the city treatment plant. So it would be entirely equitable to remove this cost of connection to the Lake Rotorua treatment plant. An increased lakes enhancement rate for all ratepayers would cover this, or a combination of the above. Finally, as stated by the RLCA representatives, other representatives, it is very willing to urgently work with Council, CEO and Mayor, plus representatives of other organisations such as Tiko Tahi Apikiao, Te Aroa Lakes Trust, Rotorua Ratepayers Association, etc., to explore and agree solutions before councils meet to confirm the LTP. I am very willing to contribute to this. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Roy. We appreciate you making yourself available by Zoom to make your submission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you do 5 minutes? Would now like to invite our friends from the Rotorua Rural Community Board, Colin Guyton, welcome back, and also John Atkinson. And as our community boards, you get 10 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you for this opportunity. I guess we had just take our submission as being read, but just wanted to add that we had meetings all around the Motu, and the feedback was pretty general from rural people was that, and look, I don't want to attack anyone, but I'm saying what was said was that they get a bit annoyed at their ratepayers' money always going to Rotorua and none of it coming back out to the rural community. So on that, I guess that's always been how rural folk feel. We feel a little bit neglected at times, just because and I guess from a voting point of view, we don't bring a lot for the councillors and around the table here, but when you live there, it's your home. It's an important place. So on that, I sort of understand how the likes of Mamaku and places like that who think that a lot of rates go from there and they don't get spent there. So on that, my submission or my what I've got to say is quite similar to what Feds are saying, although we are different. So obviously the lack of roads being sealed was one of the things that was very hotly discussed. Feeling that, as I said in my previous submission, that the amount of money being spent on roads being sealed probably should be going up, not disappearing altogether, because the amount of kilometres you get for the money that's sort of allocated is getting watered down pretty quickly. Do you have anything to add on that, John?
No, it's just that, yeah, like Colin says, that's what rural people see. And we understand that some of the roads, what is it, I forget how many kilometres of road aren't sealed, and there's few people live down them, but they still pay the same rates as everyone else. And I guess, that comes back to their bone of contention. Yeah.
So that's enough on roading. So now we move on to the stuff that's sort of more community board focused, and that is the devolved funding. We on the board and the people that we spoke to in the community felt that the money that the devolved funding went to was some of the best spent council money. A lot of the time it's topped up with money from the community, so it goes a lot further. So I for the amount of, it's really rats and mice stuff, the money we're talking here, but actually it does make a difference. And I believe that we, as a board, we need to fight to keep that 125,000K and potentially have it increased. $50,000 just goes nowhere. For example, a slide swing, $14,000. So that, and the projects that we've done, like if I just name a few of them, We've just got CCTV footage going at Rotorua. It's actually going up. We put our board money, 20,000 towards that, but it cost 35, so the community put 15 in. We've added that extra toilet at the Mamaku block. We've done a lot to enhance the halls with buying ovens and heat pumps and kitchens and stuff that the council would have to do anyway. So I believe that despite the fact that I like the idea of the council being prudent, I think that money is well spent, and I would urge that you look to try and keep that. You got anything to add on that, John?
Well, just that in your own document it says it's 0.01% of your future lending, which is, to me, is within the realms of, I forget the word. Yeah, it just seems so minor. I don't know if that was the combined with the lakes or you know, just the rural community board, but it's 0.01% is within the realms of, I forget the word. Yeah.
The thing is that a lot of those little jobs that we get done, they make a difference to people, and they don't cost a lot. And we're trying to spread it around the whole area. Mamaku's had its fair share, but we are trying to spread it around the whole area. That goes the same with the rural street improvements. It's sort of, they're both the same. They both do little jobs that the council sort of would overlook quite easily, and we managed to get them done. I think they're both worth keeping. And then once again, the real thing is the community halls. Now, obviously, with Mamaku and Rotorua being shut, that has had a huge effect on those communities. Hearing it all the time, when's Rotorua opening? And I don't know the answer, but I just think that obviously going forward as a council, we need to, and just not just the council, the community, everybody needs to buy in to how we repair those halls and what we do about replacements or whatever, or long-term stuff. This is what it is, a long-term plan. I think the halls need to be part of it.
And again, they're the part that the community sees most. And I don't think the council appreciates how important they are to those rural communities. They are the lifeblood, really. So, yeah.
And in summary, we actually think that the council needs to be prudent about spending, as we all do at the moment. Times are tough. And one hand we're saying that, and the other hand we're saying we just want those couple of little things back. So it's a big decision for the council, but I hope they take on board what our small group of people, but important group of people, think and would like to see happen.
Yep, that's about it, I think. 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. It's probably a very strong message to finish our total long-term plan hearing deliberations on. So thank you very much to our Rural Community Board members for your submission.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Apologies, elected members. We have had some submitters, two submitters arrive who were scheduled for a few days ago, but they're just seeking to be heard now. I suggest that we take them on board. So we'll get them in. But this is submission number 283, and this will be Bella and Nico Campbell, but we'll just give them a chance to come in and make their submission. On the 28th of May, 283. Welcome, Bella and Nico. How are you?
Good.
Great. Welcome. You two are our very final submitters, so we look forward to hearing what you have to say. Thank you for coming along, and you will have 5 minutes when you're ready.
Hi, my name is Bella, and I will be talking about the water slide at the Aquatic Centre and the skateboard park. We would like the water slide because it would make the water park more fun, and people who are scared of slides will try to overcome their fear. They won't be able to because us in Rotorua don't have one. Why would we want a skateboard park? Okay, here are my reasons for the people who have never gone on a skateboard park. Well, they won't have a chance to do it because there is no one. But if we had one here, they would be able to have heaps more fun in the skateboard park. The end.
Bella, would you like to help Nico get started?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Nico. Please can you build the skateboard park? I'm 7 years old. I love playing on skateboards parks. And it would be so cool. So cool to have something to play on. And I'm a teenager. We need more three things for kids. Because please listen to the children. The end.
Thank you very much, Bella and Nico. And that is well and truly the end. So we thank you very much, our young submitters. And I also want to take this moment to acknowledge and thank all of the submitters that we've had over these past 8 days. 8 days. We also acknowledge the 1,500 submissions that we have received in writing from our community. This has no doubt been a mammoth task for our community, but also for us, and we look forward to now moving forward with our deliberations, which will take place next week on the 6th and 7th, starting from 9:30 a.m. So that concludes our hearings program. I'd like to finish us off with a closing karakia. Kia whakairi ai te tapu, kia wātia ai te ara, kia turuki whakataha ai, kia turuki whakataha ai, haumie, huie, tai kie. And a big thank you to our staff who have assisted us in this process. Thank you very much. I declare the hearings closed.